This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Beneroff, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening, who are the newsmakers, what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. and Ms. White Plains and Westchester and the world. John Bailey, the Citizen Net reporter, along with Jim Beneroff, he's the anchor for all seasons. That's Peter Katz.
Jim is the anchor for the boat.
Jim Beneroff is the Dean of Journalism for the city of White Plains. So, I mean, we've got this straight after 18 years. And right now, he has the headlines.
And here are the stories for the week of November 16th, 2018. Metro area hit with white terror on the roads. Surprise snowstorm baffles, stalls, and stops area drivers for hours. Amazon is coming to Queens. County Executive George Latimer dazzles press with more than you ever heard about any budget ever. Millenniums celebrated for their new outlook that has transformed society. The future of Sears is being played out in federal court in White Plains. A new med school to open in Poughkeepsie. And the Big Ape has the last laugh.
Thank you, Jim. And now we go to the White Plains Week video newsreel, March of Time, and right up front, it started at 3 o'clock on Thursday afternoon, and it lingered and lingered, and it was a snowstorm, and everybody in the metropolitan area was affected by it, stalled out for hours.
There was a big dump. Wasn't supposed to be this way, according to most forecasts. This is a shot of downtown White Plains right by the hospital. And you can see on the left side, cars sort of backed up. There's a snowplow trapped in the backup. The downtown section was essentially gridlock last night. In fact, the whole county was essentially gridlocked. Someone coming from Elmsford to White Plains, normally a 15 to 20 minute run, spent 3 hours on the road. Could not get onto Interstate 287.
Yeah, Elmsford was particularly crippled. You can read all about what Paul Fire has to say about that.
And downtown, it took about an hour of those 3 hours to get from the City Limits Diner to the railroad bridge at the foot of Main Street.
And I think the person pointed out that she was amazed that
now,
there was no traffic direction.
I did talk to the desk person over at the police department during this, and he said his phone was ringing off the hook. He said that if it only took an hour to get from city limits to the foot of Main Street, that person was lucky because it took some people 3 hours to travel that distance.
Yes, well,
now the one thing that was noted, two things were noted. Number one, the roads themselves were not too bad, but what was happening, or what did happen, was that motorists just stopped in intersections, paid no attention to traffic lights. It was just intersection gridlock, tying up the whole downtown area, and there were no police traffic control officers visible.
Yeah, symptomatic of the aggressive driving that plagues driving today.
Now, sometime around 7:45, a snowplow finally did make it down to our end of town. So the White Plains Public Works Department was initially somewhat behind the curve here, but they have caught up very rapidly. But throughout the New York metro area, public works departments were caught flat-footed by this. During the height of it, the George Washington Bridge upper level had to be completely closed.
They had a pile up there.
Yeah.
But again,
and there were numerous accidents. News 12 this morning interviewed some guy up in Fishkill who said he spent 10 hours on the road trying to get home.
well, he's lucky he did not run out of gas.
So, welcome to winter, folks.
Well, it was something. But big story of the week, of course, is that Amazon is coming.
Well, so now we know Amazon's new headquarters plans have been announced. Westchester entered the competition to be the place, but was among some 250 losers. Amazon actually will be splitting its second headquarters into two parts, one in the Crystal City section of Arlington, Virginia, and the other in Long Island City in Queens. And the Queens location is expected to start with 500,000 square feet of space, and then see the construction of up to 4 million square feet of new space. In development, Jim, 4 million square feet is what?
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Yeah. Between 25,000 and as many as 40,000 new Amazon jobs will be created in Queens, and taxpayers will be kicking in more than $1.5 billion of incentives as of now. At a news conference this week, reports which had been floating around for days about what Amazon had decided were confirmed. First, John Schlatter of Amazon, then Governor Cuomo, then New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Big group. Must be big news today.
We currently have more than 4,000 employees in our New York offices, and we are thrilled to start calling Long Island City home as well. Long Island City is a diverse community with a unique blend of cultural and academic institutions, industrial businesses, and a thriving tech sector.
This is the largest economic development initiative that has ever been done by the city or the state or the city and the state together, believe it or not. The numbers, this is up to a $3.6 billion investment by Amazon, 25,000 to 40,000 direct jobs, average salary of over $150,000. That's the average. There are also lower paying jobs, obviously, and higher paying jobs. The number that we focus on is the number of direct and indirect jobs, because you create that nucleus of direct jobs, but there are then indirect jobs that are always created. That's estimated 107,000 jobs. Total economic impact, $186 billion.
We had to do this respecting the ground rules set out by the company that actually held the cards here in terms of their decision of where to go. That said, I think as people look at the specifics, they look at a 9-to-1 return on the investment. They look at the $27 billion in state and city tax revenue that this will gain for all of us. They look at the sheer job impact, which is beyond anything anyone's ever seen before. More and more people will come to like it. The folks who represent the immediate community legitimately are saying there's a lot of unanswered questions, there's a lot of infrastructure needs, there's been a lot of development already. Help us understand how this is going to work, because we're worried. That they have every right to. And I think other folks who have an understandable critique of some of corporate America, for some people it's ideological, and I respect that too. But I would argue that the more people see the specifics and the more they see the benefits, I think a lot of people will feel more comfortable. I certainly think folks at the community level, as they understand the facts of what could mean for the community, are going to be more comfortable. You see even here at the jump today, the Congress member, the Assembly member, the head of the Residents Association at the biggest public housing development in America, all here in support. I feel very comfortable there will be more support going forward.
Now,
How about
John,
that?
yeah, Amazon has had its effect on retailing in general, and Sears,
It's wrecked it. That's
Sears,
what it has.
among others, has been struggling. Now, there's a White Plains angle to the Sears
Yeah.
story. Sears Holding Corp has obtained a new $350 million loan that will allow the bankrupt retailer to keep operating through the holiday season. Now, you know, they have a store in the Galleria here in White Plains. Great American Capital Partners is lending Sears the money, but they're going to charge the Sears Holding Company somewhere between 12 and 15% for the loan. Is
That's
that
usurious.
cheap money or expensive
It's
money?
usurious. Good
And there'll
Lord.
be a 3% closing fee on top of that.
It's corporate loan sharking.
So in addition to the loan on Thursday at federal bankruptcy court here in White Plains, Sears also got approval to conduct auctions of 400 of its best performing stores. So they're going to
Yes,
try to
well,
liquidate.
Pick up
at
those
least part of it.
refrigerators now.
Yep.
Right. Now, one thing I want to show you is the scene of Long Island City. Let's take a look at the overview of Long Island City from satellite. There it is. And then right over there below the blue arrow, that is Long Island City. And now here is an overview, rendering from a few years ago. And One Court Square is where Amazon is going to headquarter while they plan to do what to do with the rest of Long Island City. Now another satellite view shows a closer view. And there you see the waterfront there where we're told they want to go. And a closer view will also show you the public housing development, which is those buildings that look remarkably like Winbrook. And to my way of thinking, I would be worried whether or not I would have to move. That's prime real estate.
Well,
And the city owns it.
If you recall, De Blasio said that the head of the association from that housing project was there at the news conference and supports it. So
Well,
he's
we'll
not
see.
planning to move.
We'll see.
I think.
Right. But anyway, that's what it looks like. But amazing stuff. Now, another important thing happened this week, and George Latimer, the county executive, introduced his budget for 2019. And this is a 5.5-minute clip, but it puts you into perspective.
It's important. It is loaded with information. So sit back, relax, pay attention to it.
Take notes.
And don't change the channel.
These are things that drive the decisions that are in this budget. Number one, that the Westchester County property taxes are kept at or below the state property tax cap. Now, it's very important to know that the perception of the cap is that it's a 2% cap, and that was the way it was originally presented, but there's a formula that goes with it. And because of past practice in the county where we had not raised property taxes, that formula allows us to raise property taxes to the level of 5.7%. That is what is allowable. This budget, as you will see, has a property tax levy of 2%. And that compares favorably to our neighboring counties. Putnam County is finished their budget at 2.4%. 2.47%. Rockland County, their budget is proposed at 2.9%. So I think Westchester County is consistent with where we were last year. It's important to understand that the 2% we're talking about applies to your county portion of your tax bill. So if you're paying $20,000 a year in property taxes, which is above the median property tax, we know there are people paying a lot more than that in this county, but there are people paying less. At a $20,000 total property tax bill, assuming you're paying $4,000 to the county for your county tax bill, a 2% property tax increase is an $80 increase over the course of the year. That's what comes to you in real world terms. If you're paying a mortgage, you divide that by 12, and you get a number that is so small that it really won't affect your monthly mortgage payment. We have a series of pragmatic decisions that are before us, and we have to look at them in light of the world that we live in. We have to make a case on our county finances to the various bond rating agencies, to Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch. They have looked at what was traditionally a AAA bond rating county, and they've seen us decline. We've been downgraded by one. We've been put on negative outlook by a second one. And these are fair assessments of where we are today. We have had to go into our fund balance over the last couple of years. We'll highlight the numbers in a second, which make for a difficult reality. And coming out of a business background, much less my prior government experience, I don't want to see a fund balance that's inadequate for the emergency that we don't know is coming. It's not a prudent thing to do. But given the climate where we are today, we need recurring revenues that exceed what we can realistically expect our property taxpayers to pay. The budget deficit is $60 million as we begin the process, not the end product now, begin the process. I mentioned there was, here's the math, I mentioned there was $98 million of additional spending this year over last year. Of that 98, the pass-through of raise the age is about 38 million. So you take 38 off of 98, you get 60 million. That's what we have to close. And how we go about closing that is really what most people are going to be interested in, the substance. Let me just mention again the specifics on the expense increases. Raise the age, 38.3 million, as best as we've estimated. We've had a very robust year in sales tax. Our professionals under Larry Sewell's direction have given us a projection of what we think we can additionally see in sales tax. This does not include any projected increase in sales tax rates in the future that we may yet discuss. This is projected on what we have now. We do believe that the state will authorize internet sales taxation, which has been approved but upheld by the Supreme Court fairly recently. And most states that could have acted to implement that if they needed enabling legislation. New York needs enabling legislation. We expect that to happen. So we expect that our sales tax revenue estimate, which is $578 million this year, up significantly over the projected, over the budgeted $535 million. The projection of it is higher than that. But we projected $578 million in sales tax revenue. Our property tax revenue, we projected at $570 million. Now we get down to the brass tacks. How do we close the budget deficit of $60 million, which I've outlined previously? We have a number of decisions that we've made which are non-recurring revenue. Non-recurring revenues are often called one-shots. And I've been critical of them in the past, and I'm critical of them today, even as I do them. Because in the response of transparency, you have to be honest. We're dealing with a situation where we can deal with property taxes increases on a very limited basis. The body politic does not allow for us to get through property taxes additional revenue that would satisfy our challenges, and we don't have the authority, unless Albany gives it to us, to do other types of things to raise additional revenue. We'll point out in this list a couple of additional revenues, but in some cases, the money that we have to balance this budget will come from one-shot arrangements. However, I would highlight this is very different from changing the governance of the airport. The airport is a main function of county government. And I was, I think, properly critical, and the board's position was this in 2 consecutive years, that they were not prepared to make a 40-year deal based on the finances of the moment. Now, should the board have discussions about that particular topic or anything else, that's perfectly fine. We'll engage in those discussions. But the arrangements that are here represent what we think are reasonable actions. They're certainly subject to debate and discussion.
And
Now,
there you have it.
regular viewers of this program may remember that last week, before this announcement was made, we reported the essence of what was going to happen right here.
Yes, right, in about 10 seconds.
There you go.
No, but seriously, this is positively everything a journalist could ask for in a review of the budget. Everything.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
covered everything. He covered a lot of the
Most
factors.
people's
It was
eyes
the best
glaze
I've
over when
ever
you do this,
seen.
so, yeah.
It's the best presentation of a budget I have ever seen.
Well, it's, more information than had been released in the past by the county.
Gobs.
Let's put it that way.
Gobs of information, gobs that stick, unfortunately, folks.
Yeah.
They stick, and this is what you're paying for.
We're complaining about budgets and all of the information you get. Some people are complaining about millennials as being lazy or irresponsible or not showing up for work on time. But in White Plains this week, millennials were honored for making contributions to businesses. 40 of them received what's called the Millie Award from White Plains-based West Fair Communications, which staged its 5th annual Millie Awards. The Millie Awards for 2018 were handed out on November 13th in an event at 1133 Westchester Avenue in White Plains. The Millies celebrate young professionals, ages 21 through 34, who already have embarked on outstanding careers. The event was presented by West Fair Communications, publisher of the Westchester and Fairfield County Business Journals, and WAG Magazine. The bronze sponsors were Aquarian, Blue, Deloitte, Greenwich Hospital, Greater Hudson Bank, Lipolis Electric, Neiman Marcus.
Yukon School of Business, and Val's Putnam Wines and Liquors. Supporters were Buzz Creators, the Bristol Assisted Living, McIntyre Group, Oasis Day Spa, Tompkins Mayapack Bank, and Hospitality Resource Group. Marcia Flug, West Fair's Events and Sponsorships Director, opened the
And
proceedings.
everyone might wonder why we have this event for millennials every year. And we recognize that it's such an important part of our economy and our workforce. It is now the largest segment of the workforce, overtaking the baby boomers. They're about to have the largest transfer of wealth ever in the United States.
You know, maybe we need the millennial in the White House.
Well, it would be, well, I think the millennials have really revolutionized things with their communications, but they have to pay more attention to where the country is going. They have to get less self-absorbed and more outwardly involved.
You want to know where it's going? The White House sources say that President Trump is close to going off the deep end and has been acting erratically and alternates between going out of control and sulking and becoming withdrawn. There have been published reports attributed
I do that
to
all
White
the
House
time.
sources.
I do that all the time.
Trump has spent 3 days this week meeting with his lawyers who have been preparing written answers to questions asked by special counsel Robert Mueller in the Russia investigation. The man Trump appointed as acting attorney general, Matthew Whitaker, was declared by the legal commentator for Fox News, Judge Anthony Napolitano, to be in the job illegally because the appointment didn't meet any of 3 requirements to be done legally. Now, Napolitano goes even further and says the appointment violates the Constitution. That's a stunning thing for Fox News to be saying about something Trump has done, because it means that Trump is no longer upholding his oath of office, which requires him to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. And when he violates his oath, that's grounds for impeachment. And on Fox News,
The I word.
Trump plans to visit California tomorrow, Saturday, to meet with some victims of the forest fires. Donald Trump Jr. has been telling friends he expects to be indicted in the Mueller probe for lying to federal investigators, according to Vanity Fair magazine. Despite Trump's attempt to claim a big victory in the midterm elections, the Democrats' blue wave continues, with them flipping 35 House seats so far, with more races still to be decided, and turning red state legislatures and governorships blue. Trump told 1,176 lies in the 2 months before the midterms, according to what Lawrence O'Donnell reported last night on MSNBC. The troops sent to the southern border by Trump in a political stunt before the election are going to miss Thanksgiving with their families, probably Christmas and New Year's too, and they've essentially been doing nothing except stringing up some barbed wire, and the cost so far, $200 million. That's a lot of barbed wire.
Yes, that could fill our legislature deficit.
It could.
Yes.
If you still have doubts that anti-Semitism has flourished under Donald Trump, listen to this. In Baltimore, during a performance of the show Fiddler on the Roof at the Hippodrome Theater, a man was physically removed from the theater after he jumped up from his seat and started shouting, "Heil Hitler, Heil Trump."
That is
You
breathtaking.
know, I'm reading Omarosa's book, Unhinged,
Yeah.
and at one point she said when Trump was planning on being sworn in, he wanted to put his hand on the book, The Art of the Deal,
Instead of the Bible?
instead of the Bible.
Oh, whoa.
That's an interesting sidelight. Thank you for sharing that with us. Fills me with confidence. Yes.
In something more sensible, if you want to become a doctor, you may soon have another option for your career path right here in the Hudson Valley. Marist College in Poughkeepsie and healthcare provider HealthQuest are moving ahead with a plan to start the Marist HealthQuest School of Medicine, which they hope to have up fully running no later than 2022, and that will be the only medical school between Albany and Westchester.
Marist College, known for its historic campus overlooking the Hudson River in Poughkeepsie and the education it offers, and the Marist polls on politics and other current affairs, and healthcare provider HealthQuest, based in LaGrangeville, have joined in a venture to create the Marist HealthQuest School of Medicine. They're planning a new building on the Vassar Brothers Medical Center campus about a mile from Marist, and special purpose facilities on the Marist campus itself. College President David Yellen and HealthQuest President and CEO Robert Friedberg met with reporters from the Business Journal.
We were approached by HealthQuest to discuss the possibility of working together to start a medical school. They were expanding the Vassar Brothers Hospital, and they were starting a residency program, and they had the idea that if we could partner and develop a med school, it might be good for both institutions and for the region. So we basically had those discussions for 2 years and did a lot of very serious research and analysis before announcing that we were moving ahead.
We thought that Marist shared a lot of the same values and objectives that we did. And when we looked at what they had to offer in the community, their proximity to HealthQuest, we just thought that they were the ideal candidate for being able to move forward with a medical college. I think the city has been very supportive, and I think they look at this as a great opportunity to help revitalize different parts of Poughkeepsie and certainly the area around the riverfront. And it creates an opportunity for them to put a mark on Poughkeepsie for being the center for medical education for the northeast part of the country. And so I think they're very excited about it. In order for us to continue our mission to provide exceptional health care to the communities we serve, we really need to have a good supply of physicians coming into the community. We have to be able to attract the highest talent of capability from the physician communities and bring them to this region. And we look at the medical college as a way to be able to adjunct what we're doing today and provide more services by having more doctors get familiar with this area, like this area, and decide that they want to have their families and live in this community as well as have a career here.
So they're building a new building up in Poughkeepsie for a medical college. You've got Amazon building, what, 4.5 million square feet, at least something like that in Long Island City. You see a lot of construction here in Westchester. What's happening, Jim? I mean, are we seeing some sort of economic revitalization springing into action here? What's going on?
It's certainly going to revitalize things economically. There's so much stuff going on. I mean, it's like the amount of residential development in White Plains is unbelievable. The second building that's going next to the Continuum, they've added 38 units to that, which surprised me because there's so much stuff going on. I don't know how many units we can absorb that fast. They've also started to tear down some of the buildings. The building that's going to go on the corner of Post Road, Mamaroneck Avenue.
Yes.
And actually, the Housing Authority developer apparently has gotten financing set now to tear down the second building at Winbrook to build a new second building over there. So that may start happening in a couple of months from now. Now, after last night's gridlock in the snowstorm, the question then is, what do we do about the infrastructure? How do we control all of this development? What kind of investments do we have to make?
Well, first of all, they got to get all the financing in order to build these places, and which they haven't got yet. So, seems financing is everybody's problem, isn't it, folks? Anyway, John Bailey, Jim Beneroff, Peter Katz. Good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week. News and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.